Jeff Kent was just elected into the Hall of Fame via Veterans Era Committee. So let's talk about it. Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we are talking about good sports for you. And before we hop into it, I want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe. I'm coming out with content all off season long, so make sure to subscribe and follow along. So first, I want to talk about Jeff Kent. So I think that he is 100% deserving. When I went through my Hall of Fame breakdown, he was one of the guys on the Veterans Era Committee that I was like, yes, he should be in. It was him and Dale Murphy were those two guys that I was like, really like, yes, they should be in. Dale Murphy obviously didn't get in this time around. There's potential he could get in the future, but Jeff Kent was able to get in. And when you're looking at the stats, I think he's 100% deserving. He's sitting at 55.4 career baseball reference WAR, which is a little bit low. You want to shoot a little bit higher. If you could get like a 60, I feel like that's more like, yeah, this guy's in the Hall of Fame. But when you're looking at second basemen, they're underrepresented in the Hall. And in addition, they kind of just tend to stack up a little bit less when it comes to WAR, but he has almost 2,500 hits and he has 377 home runs, which is the most of any second baseman ever. So like when you're looking at as a complete batter, he also batted 290. So he's one of the most well-rounded offensive second basemen ever. He had a 123 OPS plus, which basically means that he was 23% better than the league average hitter during his time, and like when you compare it across all of baseball, because that's how OPS Plus works, right? And he also won an MVP, was a 5-time All-Star, and a 4-time Silver Slugger. So I think he has the accolades to back it up, and he definitely has the numbers. So I think 100% he is deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. I'd also like to note the Veterans Era Committee isn't any different from getting into the Hall of Fame any other way. This is the Hall of Fame. Everyone who's in the Hall of Fame is in the Hall of Fame. There's no like, oh, you got in via writer's ballot, you got in first ballot, you got in via Veterans Committee. The Hall of Fame is the Hall of Fame. It's this group of guys who just did so much in the game of baseball. I think that it's really good that he was able to get in, especially when you're looking at the writer's ballot, because I think this is a very particularly weak class this year when it comes to that ballot specifically. I think there's only one guy that I could realistically see getting in this year, and that is going to be Carlos Beltran. I mean, there's an off chance that Andruw Jones would be able to get in this year, but I think it's more likely that there's no Hall of Famers elected via writer's ballot than there are 2 Hall of Famers elected via writer's ballot. And I will say that for the MLB and for baseball and for the Hall of Fame as a whole, you can't go years without electing anyone into the Hall of Fame. So now basically you got that out of the way in a particularly weak class for the ballot. So I think that it's very good for baseball. So you're going to have a Cooperstown inauguration in this upcoming year. So I think it's a very good thing for all of baseball. So when you're looking at the Veterans Committee, like I said, it's not any different from getting in the Hall of Fame in terms of once you're in, right? But it is very different in terms of the election process. When you look at the writer's ballot, you have like 400 writers or something like that voting on a laundry list of guys who have played at least 10 years in the big leagues, and you need over 5% of the vote to stay in. You have less than 10 years to get in, and if you're not in on your 10th year, then you're off the ballot completely, and then you got to get 75% to get in. Whereas the Veterans Committee is a very small group of 16 members that includes 7 Hall of Famers, 3 media members, and 6 executives. And similar to the writer's ballot, you still need 75% to get in, so you need 12 votes of the 16. But they also only nominate 8 people. So this year you had Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Carlos Delgado, Jeff Kent, Dale Murphy, Don Mattingly, Fernando Valenzuela, and Gary Sheffield. So obviously it's going to be different because you don't have like dozens of guys to vote for. You only have 8 guys to vote for, right? So because of that, each member only has 3 votes as compared to the 10 that the writers have. You can vote for as many as 3 people. You can vote for as little as 0. And you need, like I said, you need 12 votes to get in. But there's a new thing that if you got to less than 5%, you are not going to be on this committee voting ballot the next time that it comes around in 3 years. And for the Veterans Era committees, there are multiple committees. There are 3 committees, and they cycle every single year. So next time that we're going to see this specific like modern committee or whatever it's called is going to be in 2028. So that's very important, and I wanted to note that. When you're looking at the voters, I'm going to only focus on the Hall of Famers because it represents such a wide variety. You have Fergie Jenkins, Jim Kaat, Juan Marichal, Tony Perez, Ozzie Smith, Alan Trammell, and Robin Yount. So of that group, you have such a wide variety. You got pitchers, you got position players, you got guys who are first ballot Hall of Famers, you got guys who were like third ballot Hall of Famers, you got guys who got it via Veterans Committee. You got a wide range of like eras, like what I think it's like 40 years recovered between the 7 guys. So I think that is very important, and it represents some good diversity in the Hall of Fame voting process. So when you're looking at the total votes for each player, you had Jeff Kent get in with 14 votes. So he got in with about 87.5% of the votes. You had Carlos Delgado, who got 9 votes, so he's staying above 50%. You had Dale Murphy and Don Mattingly getting 6 votes, so just staying that over 5 threshold mark. And then you had Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Gary Sheffield, and Fernando Valenzuela, each receiving fewer than 5 votes. And like I said, that means they will not be eligible in 2028, and they will only be eligible next in 2031. In addition, once 2031 comes around, if those guys do not receive more than 5 votes, they will be ineligible for future consideration into the Hall of Fame. So that is absolutely huge news, because it's basically like, if you don't get those 5 votes, like, you're done. Like those guys, Barry Bonds, who a lot of people consider one of the best, if not the best player to ever play the game, but obviously has huge steroid ties. If he doesn't get those 5 in the 6 years when the next vote comes around, he will be done. He will not be able to get into the Hall of Fame. And the Veterans Committee is so interesting because it's very different from the normal media voting, right? Because you don't have all the writers voting. And a lot of people who are like PEDs, like apologists, I guess I'll say, were basically like, okay, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens aren't going to get in because the media didn't like them and all of these things and blah, blah, blah. But the Veterans Committee will let them in because they're players, they know how good they were and everything like that. We just saw that is not the case at all. And for these guys to get into the Hall of Fame, there is going to have to be a lot of campaigning or something, because to get under 5 votes on this small committee of 16 people, you're gonna have to change a lot of people's perspective on your playing days and about if you were using steroids, how much you were using steroids. Was that fine back then? You know, how does that different from guys who use steroids now? You know, we were never suspended, so was it ever really an issue? That is going to come up huge in the next time that these guys come around. And this was the first time that you had these guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens be on this Veterans Era Committee. So if this shows any indication for how it's going to go in the future, it basically shows that these guys who use steroids won't get any love from these Veterans Era Committee. And they got to figure out a way that if they want to get into the Hall of Fame, they got to have their offices and their campaigners to go out and pound those doors, essentially, to get them into the Hall of Fame. But I don't want to talk too much about them. I want to give a huge congratulations to Jeff Kent and everyone. Like I said before, I think he is 100% deserving to get into the Hall of Fame. And I think it is excellent that he was able to get in this year, especially, like I said, considering this weak ballot. But as a whole, like, this Veterans Era Committee was very, very interesting, but I'm very excited to see when the full ballot comes out in 2026, and I want to see who got into the Hall of Fame, who maybe got snubbed, who got less votes than expected. But thank you for watching so much. I had a great time talking to you. I hope you had a great time listening to me. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you think all those thoughts about the Veterans Committee, leave them down below. You know, let me know if you think that Jeff Kent shouldn't have gotten in. Let me know if you think Carlos Delgado should have gotten in this year. Let me know if you think that Barry Bonds should have been unanimous and all those things. I would appreciate it so, so much. And I'm out. Peace.